Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Now, we had been doing that segment called Occult Mondays, and the first one that we ever did really was like not super occult, actually, it was just cult. The first one I ever did for it was the Signs of a Cult Leader, where we talked about something that had been put forward in a video by Sean McCraney, and he actually gave 6 signs that you can look for if someone is using a cult leader mentality. But I really just focused in on 3 of them. That first, they discredit the ways of the past. Second, they produce a new way, usually in the form of a book. And the third one is they tell you that you're missing something from your life, and the only way to get it is to follow their new way that they have produced. In the past, many people try to use things like happiness and love. They tell you that you're missing something such as happiness from your life, or you're not loved. But now, I didn't hear this in his video, but I think people are actually using something such as intelligence, where they say, follow my ways, or you're not as intelligent as people who do so. And that's kind of the new kind of 21st century mentality that certain types of cult leaders use. Of course, it was very present in some of the political cult-like followings that we saw in from the 1960s onward and the later part of the 20th century. But to digress from that, let's talk about Christopher Nemelka, because Christopher Nemelka is someone whom I almost thought about using as the subject of my deep dive podcast segment, like every Monday. I thought about, why don't I just kind of explore some of the ideas that he puts forward from his organizations, which are the Humanity Party and Marvelous Work and a Wonder. You can find those at marvelousworkandawonder.com, and they have loads of YouTube videos. They have a Facebook page for the Humanity Party, and of course they're on Twitter, very big on social media. But why did I want to choose that subject as something for a deep dive podcast segment? Well, we did one upload on this channel about Christopher Nemelka Evil Ideas, where they talked about some of the things in the Humanity Party, where they want a one-world government, they want a single religious orthodoxy, where it's like believe that God is the human sense of self-direction and the human moral compass, and they also want to expand this plan outward over the entire world. I mean, one world created by and for the people. I've learned a little bit more about their platform, Marvelous Work and a Wonder, and, it's like, this is kind of when it starts to just hinge, like, are these actually genuine ideas, or is this just cult leadership? Is this brilliance, or is this just, silliness decked up with some fancy things to draw your attention to? They say some things, and Christopher Nemelka, their spokesperson anyway, says a lot of these things, like, the only way to connect with people is to lie to them. Like, the only way to actually exert influence over large social groups is to lie to them. And, then you have to reveal that, like, hey, yeah, I lied to you because you wouldn't have done so otherwise. Like, Christopher Nemelka used to say he was the descendant of Hiram Smith. He was the reincarnation of Hiram Smith. He used to say that, he was the author of the sealed portion of the Book of Mormon. He could communicate with people in other solar systems. Yes, I mean, actually talk to existing life forms in other solar systems using like seer stones and things of that nature. And then he's just like, there's a video online where they say he just kind of came out and was just like, yeah, that was a total forgery. But the only reason why I put those things forward is because human beings will only listen to someone if at first you lie to them and then you tell them the truth. And that's kind of the thing I wanted to talk about today. Because when you examine something like that, it's like, is that a genuinely true statement? Because, I mean, have you heard this before? Politicians tell lies, right? Right? And maybe even religious and spiritual leaders tell lies, right? I mean, sometimes everybody tells lies, and also sometimes people tell lies to actually protect somebody. Is that a genuinely profound statement, that the only way you can exert an enormous amount of influence over people is if at first you deceive them and then you reveal something later on? I mean, like revelation or something like that. But or and this is a big one, this is a big conjunction, or is that just a failsafe? Because Christopher Nemelka is also someone who said that all major religions in the world have a fail-safe, where it's like there's something that hasn't been revealed yet, or there's something that, we aren't certain about that has been kind of withheld, or maybe there's something that humans can't know on their earthly form, and he called that the fail-safe. It's something that they can use if they need to. But what about his platform? I mean, like, once again, is that whole thing that human beings have to be convinced by deception? Isn't that sort of a failsafe in your set? Like, couldn't you just make up any crap you wanted, and then if you actually get caught in a lie, or you get caught being disingenuous, or you get caught saying something you don't genuinely believe, you could just say, well, yeah, absolutely, that's true. You're right, you've caught me, but the reason why I did it was, because I wanted to convince people. It's almost like your get out of jail free card, or what somebody called one of those perfect lies, where it's like, if you ever get caught, you have like an excuse, and if you don't get caught, well, then people genuinely believe what you're saying. So, well, there you go. It's like you can't lose. And they mentioned this in this kind of cult leaders also do this thing, and this wasn't even in his six signs of a cult leader, but he just made one comment where he's like, they use this mentality, so you're never wrong. And a lot of people do that. You could call it argumentative trickery. You could call it, just chicanery or deception. But it's like they try to set things up so they're never wrong. And that's exactly what's going on when you sort of put forward that theory or that statement that you have to use deception to convince people. Well, then, like, if you get caught in a lie, you have a perfect excuse. And if you are not caught, well, then they believe you anyway. I mean, so it's just like there definitely is a certain amount of I was about to say argumentative trickery. No, there's a certain amount of kind of just a human failsafe that is used in Christopher Nemelka and their school of thought, marvelous work and a wonder. But what do they want other than this stuff about a one world government and a single non-religious orthodoxy where everyone's thinking the same way? Well, some of the things that were actually put forward in on his kind of podcasts, I guess it's actually a TV show or something, but it's been uploaded on YouTube, just kind of similar to a podcast format. They were saying some things like he has actually some historical arguments. His group believes that Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church, was actually a good person, and the Mormon Church was actually founded as a way to eradicate poverty and to kind of recognize universal brotherhood within humanity, among humanity, rather, and that it was actually Brigham Young who kind of corrupted the kind of teachings of Joseph Smith. Is that really true? I'm not certain about that. But what I would say is, I mean, like, I'm really just, not that familiar with the kind of background of the Mormon Church, but what they're sort of saying as well is that the New Testament is a way, once again, to eradicate poverty, and they took the portions of the Old Testament that were all about destruction, and they wanted to get away from that, and they wanted to kind of implement something where people would be like based on generosity and charity and giving and healing the sick and clothing the poor and stuff. But once again, that message became corrupted because what they do is, I mean, this is, the kind of Christopher Nemelka arguing, not really me. He is saying that people then just sort of take that and they play off people's prejudices and they get them to do what is evil. What is good is to just recognize, once again, the universal acceptance of all humans, regardless of, well, anything, and to recognize that we need a government by and for the people, created by the people. It's more about breaking down human thought and just sort of getting rid of barriers. Not to mention, once again, they want everybody to believe the same thing. But do they genuinely believe this stuff, or are they just making up crap to get attention? We talked about this on another previous upload. Crafting delusional arguments to have your own brand. Well, I mean, not a mind reader, but I see a lot of this type of a lot of deceptive mechanisms. And you also hear some things from Christopher Nemelka in one of his 2018 interviews when he was saying that he doesn't want people to come to him with ideas. And I was like, what? That's a weird thing to say. You don't want people to come to you with ideas? And then the explanation for that is the Humanity Party has a plan. Marvelous Work and a Wonder has a plan. And if you're trying to change their plan, then you're trying to fuel your own ego. You want to be the person who has the ideas that are going to save the world. Never mind if there already is a plan that could actually work, that could actually, bring peace to the earth. But you're saying, no, you don't want peace to the earth. You want to be the one who's going to do it. And once again, is that a profound statement, or is that about kind of demanding submission? No, the only ideas are what we're going to have here in our books, and you have to submit before them. Otherwise, you're just fueling your own ego and you're trying to be running the show. I'm not really sure what to make of when it comes to something like that. Once again, is that a genuinely profound statement about how we live our lives, or is that just somebody who is like, I want to be in charge. I want to be the leader, or I am the leader and you must follow me. I mean, I don't really necessarily know what to make of some things like that because, once again, a lot of this stuff is what it really is this person thinking. And, we talked about before about how do you question the motivations of a madman. And even in the Madeleine McCann case, we talked about one detective, I believe his name was Mark Rowley. I guess maybe he's an inspector from England. And he was saying that when you're sort of dealing with, some things about different people, you can't always just put your mind into that person and be like, well, what would I do in that situation? Because that person isn't going to be thinking the same thing as you. But I would say, though, to the credit of Marvelous Work and a Wonder, is they have lots of books out, and their online copies are free. The PDFs are free. I mean, you have to pay money to get the hard copies, paperback and hardback, but they give away all their books for free. I mean, that's not really the biggest sign of any sort of cult following. They don't really have any sort of congregation. I mentioned, though, they did have a TV show, but they don't really get that many views. Like most of those uploads have like 700 views, and I mean, for a channel like Black Box Radio, that'd be amazing if all of our uploads had 700 views. This is a very, very, very small little podcast here. I'm not judging them on that, but I meant, like, are you actually trying to draw people into this massive cult leader following Jim Jonestown sort of thing? I don't really think it's like that. I think it's more that well, what this group talks about is they say that in the 1980s, in 1987 specifically, at least 5 people got together. It was 4 or 5. It might have actually been 4 people, and then they got Christopher Nemelka to be their spokesperson. And they created sort of a plan for humanity, kind of like sort of the best way for society to function. And that would become first Marvelous Work and a Wonder, and then Humanity. And it's actually the ideas of at least 5 people. Maybe now there's 7 people that have been involved with this. And, it's like that just kind of is what it is. That this is the work of some people who have a plan that's fairly interesting because so many things like, the New World Order theories are mostly about, the stuff like the globalists, that they want to create this kind of one world government where humans are going to be submissive to the government, and then people like the Humanity Party are just saying, yeah, that's a good thing. We should live like that. It's just that the humans, like the everyday citizens should be in charge, not the oligarchs, not the politicians who are lying. There are some other very bold ideas that are put forward in Christopher Nemelka's platform, such as Jesus was a socialist. That was one thing that he said. And I heard a similar thing expressed by Tom Hartman, the progressive talk show host, who he was like saying that communism was biblical in origin, that, they had this little group, they had everything was divided equally. Judas was in charge of the communal purse and something like that. And then Christopher Nemelka said something similar when he said Jesus was a socialist. And once again, that Joseph Smith actually wanted to sort of kind of recreate something like that in the, what was it, the 19th century, where they would kind of just reverse that. Joseph Smith wanted it to be not Jesus, but the Moses of the latter days. And, I mean, that's a very bold statement. I'm not really up to date on my, background of the Mormon church, and I'm not even really the person to be talking about Jesus. That's not really something to cover too much on this channel. But what I would say about this stuff is, I would say that kind of the overall biggest thing we need to be aware of is some manipulation tactics and certain kind of cult-like mentalities are becoming much larger in the 21st century. And the way that they're going about this is they're using things like podcasts and talk radio. Talk radio is so good for this because, somebody just has like a 3-hour monologue. And Joe Rogan was even talking about how the benefits of YouTube are that you don't have time limits. If people do have the equipment that can do so, you can upload 2 hours, 3 hours, and you don't have to leave room for any sort of interruptions if that's the way that you do your show. And it's kind of just a new way to kind of spread out ideas. But there are people out there who want to kind of be the figurehead. They want to be the kind of central force of it all. They want to just have a following for the sake of having a following. I mean, what did someone leave? Someone left a comment once on kind of just a podcast that someone else had put up, not one of mine, but someone else's, where they were like, "Be careful of people who like to hear themselves talk," and that is so true. I mean, I really recognize with a lot of kind of the up and coming political movements that are like really, really small, something like the Humanity Party, which is Christopher Nemelka's, or maybe the Green Party and the Lyndon LaRouche movement. They were just like the largest figures in those groups are people who just want to be the center of it all. They want to just share their message because they like hearing themselves talk, and they just want to be the center of a movement, any movement. And I think that that's one of the larger cult like mentalities that we're going to be having in the 21st century. I don't necessarily think that we're going to be seeing too many things like Jim Jones and drinking Kool-Aid, because people are aware of that stuff, and we now have the internet. It's now so easy to share those type of things, and people are really much aware of the kind of religious aspects of cult leadership. People are aware that okay, this person might be saying some certain, kind of spiritual things to try and deceive me, but I don't think people are very much aware of it when it comes to political cults. Granted, the Humanity Party, Christopher Nemelka, they say that religion and politics are one and the same. That's another one of their very large argumentative statements. We talked about how Jesus was a socialist. Religion and politics are one and the same. One world government, one way of thinking. They want everybody to believe the same thing. But I did learn from kind of like a little bit of an explanation on their book, Human Reality, which is available for free online, that it's also sort of like, I mean, there's this kind of very kind of interesting thing where I almost thought maybe there is some truth to what they're saying, where it's like, like, I'll just kind of give a nutshell explanation of one of their presentations. If you were to take a blank piece of paper and you draw a pig, well, who created that pig? You did. If you draw the sun, who created that sun? You did. And it's just like, that's it. That's what creation is. You are the center of your reality. Like, you are the center of your reality. And you are the creator of your reality. And that's kind of what they view. Also, the Humanity Party and Marvelous Work and a Wonder do not believe in evolution. No, they don't believe in Charles Darwin. And I was just like, what? I mean, like, excuse me? I believe in evolution, for the record. But what they're saying is just sort of like, I guess it's just the time period that you live in, your kind of experience of existence is all there is, and once again, you are the creator of your realities, and maybe the collective humanity that's currently on Earth is the creator of your realities, and those are some things that I really just need to kind of spend more time with to actually determine what exactly are you saying, because I think you maybe need more than just one sentence with something like that to get a deeper understanding. But back to cult leadership. Excuse me for that little tangent. But about cult leadership, it's like some of the things that people argue with that stuff is just that I think we're going to be seeing a lot more political style cults in the 21st century, because people they're kind of skeptical of things like Jim Jones, and they're skeptical of things such as kind of just religious style cults, and running off and joining in up with a group, and just the ceremonial aspects of things. I think that people are a little bit more skeptical of those things, but they are not skeptical of something where people are just putting out a particular political argument that is very well worded. And Dave Smiley talks about this, who hosts the show Dogma Debates, and he sort of said kind of one profound statement when he's like, like when you go along with something, it's many times it's just because the person who's saying it has a very charismatic personality, and you would probably go along with many things that they would say because they're probably very good at presenting their ideas, they're good at arguing their case, and they have a personality that attracts you to them. I mean, even when, do you ever notice that though, when some people who are politically involved get very, very nasty, they say lots of insults, they say lots of egotistical things, but you still keep listening to them and you sort of want to know what they're going to say next. It's like that kind of mentality. So I think people are going to branch out into a lot of other things, such as maybe more YouTubers will be kind of running kind of cult like mentalities in the future. Um, I mean, I think it might happen. Stefan Molyneux has been accused of being a cult leader, and all he really does is kind of work on YouTube and the internet and free domain radio. I mean, I don't even know if that is a real radio show or if it's just online. I'm not really a big fan or follower of him. It's just I've heard he's been accused of running an internet style cult. And I think there's going to be more things like that. I think that, you know, the perhaps the cult like mentalities of politics have never gone away. They've probably always been there. I mean, I think you could probably go back and just find history repeating itself for a long time. But what I would say about it is, I think it's really going to take different forms on the internet, and religious style cults are going to become a little bit smaller, and kind of the political cult is going to be much bigger. Some people encourage it, though. They say that this is Plato's philosopher king. This person has good ideas, so we're going to go with his ideas, as opposed to, you know, something where we kind of all just kind of argue it out and this is the end product that comes out. They're going to be like, no, he or she is the person that we're going to follow because they have the best ideas. And Clement Attlee, the former Prime Minister of the UK, talked about that. Democracy is government by discussion, but it only works when one person is talking. So it's kind of a way to do that same thing, where it's like you're voluntarily just accepting the guidance and the dictation and the, well, the spectrum of ideas from a single person. But I think a lot of people would kind of use that in a destructive way. And is that what's going on with Christopher Nemelka? Well, definitely a little bit. I mean, the question is, you know, like, how genuine are they? That sort of fail-safe where, you know, yeah, I lie to people sometimes, but, you know, it's only because that's how you convince people. I mean, that's getting really dangerous. Um, I would still spend some time with his material. I mean, it is free. I mean, it's free for me anyway. And I also kind of want to know a little bit more. And I also, the reason I find this stuff interesting is because it's almost like, I mean, I like when people make kind of insightful statements, no matter who they are. I mean, we just kind of did the book Pale Horse Rider on this channel, which was all about William Cooper. I mean, there were some kind of profound statements on both sides, for and against, all that stuff, and I just like new ideas. That's kind of why we host this little black box podcast. I mean, it's been really good talking about the true crime theories and having people, you know, kind of discuss them with me in the comment sections. I get excellent comments on the true crime stuff, and the political things we've done on this channel are much less popular, but I'm hoping that in the future we can get, you know, some discussions going on those things as well, especially as we approach the upcoming election in 2020. But the Humanity Party has something interesting. That's Christopher Nemelka's organization, the person we've been talking about today, where they don't want you to write down any candidates. Originally, they wanted to have a controlling they wanted control in the Senate and the House of Representatives, and then we could have one world government by and for the people. No, they just want you to write in the Humanity Party in the write-in section, and that's, again, the first time I've ever heard anything like that. It's just to draw attention to the Humanity Party. But they just have so many bold statements. I think the combination of treating religion and politics as one thing is probably not going to be a very popular thing. I mean, I don't necessarily know if that'll ever catch on in America. I don't want to sound pessimistic and kind of not being open-minded, but I mean, most people don't treat those two things as exactly the same thing. That's very difficult to accept. But in terms of mentality, is this really just kind of a cult? Or is this kind of just people making crap up because they like to hear themselves talk? I don't know. Only they hold the answers to that. But I would say that I'm somewhat skeptical about them. For things like this, the way you can do that is you can approach it as entertainment first, and then genuine commentary second, and then also the third thing is to kind of just see if you find anything insightful. Maybe you even get some new facts. Like because a lot of these guys, like Christopher Nemelka, they aren't based on nothingness. They do have factual, assertions that they put out, and there could be things there that you might like genuinely find insightful. But once again, entertainment first, commentary second, and factual contributions third. Well, that's all for me now. Until next time.